We talked last week that they needed bullpen help. They needed definitely someone on the back end of the bullpen that could go up and get guys out. They could use some outfield production depth. They could use maybe an upgrade at third base or backup second baseman, however you want to phrase it. They didn't go out and get the outfield bat that we had hoped. We mentioned a few names they were linked to. Ultimately, a lot of the guys that we talked about, it sounds like the Royals had conversations with, which is great, but just nothing came to fruition. And I think, as we'll get into, that it sounds like JJ, there were some guys that he said, nah, we're not moving those guys for this type of piece right now. Maybe if they were a little bit different situation, they would. But all things considered, you got to feel like they had a pretty good deadline with the three guys they got. And, pitcher Michael Lorenzen wasn't on my radar at the trade deadline. He was in the offseason, but not at the deadline, from Texas. Infielder Paul DeYoung from the Chicago White Sox, again, was not on my radar, but fits decently well. And then one of your favorite guys on the market, Lucas Urseg, out of Oakland's bullpen, which Oakland has had a couple guys that, for a team that wasn't very good this year and isn't very good, a couple guys in the bullpen that have some tremendous stuff. And Lucas Urseg, almost a perfect match for what we were looking for. So let's start with Michael Lorenzen there. A guy that I had mentioned to you I loved in the offseason as a potential addition to this starting rotation. A guy that's got some flexibility, who could start, who could probably come out of the bullpen, long relief, spot start here and there. JJ and Matty Q both kind of said, hey, we're going to figure out how we want to use him. We've already seen him pitch once so far, and he started his first outing was a start, pitched pretty well, 5 2/3 last night. Yeah. Pretty solid there. Came in with a 3.81 ERA in 19 appearances, 18 starts on a 1-year cheap deal. So a guy that is capable of performing down the stretch and could maybe audition for another spot in this roster next year. But we did give up Walter Pennington, a guy you were pretty high on, left-handed pitcher. But we've talked about it. The Royals have a lot of lefties, and there's just no way to keep them all at the major league level. So from a fan base, I think there was a lot of pushback that they wanted it to be someone else. But you also have to keep in mind the team has to be willing to take on said player that you want to get rid of. So it's not just pick the worst of the lefties and take them. Team's got to be willing to take your guy. But what can you tell me about Michael Lorenzen, and how do you like his fit?
Oh, I love the fit in Kansas City. It's perfect. And I love that they gave up Walter Pennington. When we had last time we had Jack Johnson on, and we're talking about guys, I mentioned that Walter Pennington would be a great trade chip because he came out of nowhere and he tops out at 93, and we have a ton of lefties. Like, it just makes too much sense that to get rid of him, to kind of take advantage of this luck that you fell into, because who knew if it was going to translate to the majors. So no issue with giving up Walter, even though a lot of fans fell in love with him just because of his numbers in AAA this year. But with Lorenzen, he can do whatever you want. He can start for you. He can be a swingman out of the bullpen. He's going to be the emergency pinch runner, emergency pinch hitter. The dude's an athlete, former two-way player a little bit. Again, got 6 starts in the outfield for the Reds back in 2019, has a career OPS over 700. Obviously, that was back when pitchers hit a little bit more. He hasn't really swung the bat since, but just know that you have that kind of athlete on the bench is still, on the margins. That's what the Royals' whole game plan has been since JJ took over, is keep getting better on the margins. Lorenzen allows you to do that. They sent Marsh to AAA, which really wasn't on my radar, but makes perfect sense because, he is at, all these guys are at so many innings, but Marsh being the youngest and being the biggest leap in innings, send him to the minors, let him throw 40 to 60 pitches. So he's kind of in that spot start swingman role. And then if health continues, if performance continues for the rest of the rotation, when it gets into September, when it gets into the last 2 weeks of the season or whatever, you can call Marsh back up and throw him in the pen. And now you've got a guy that can touch 98. So or if by keeping him 4-6, if Lorenzen gets hurt, if something crazy happens, bring Marsh back up to start. It gives this team a lot of flexibility and a way to control innings, a way to reduce innings to some of these guys. There's just so many positives that Lorenzen can add that, giving up Walter Pennington was a no-brainer.
I love the addition because it gives you length. Outside of Michael Wacha, I'm pretty sure Marsh, Singer, Lugo, and Reagans are all on pace to have their most innings pitched in a season currently. Obviously, that can change. But having 4 of your 5 guys approaching career numbers like that gives you a little bit of worry for the final stretch of the season. So adding a guy that can come in, make a spot start, or maybe over the course of 2 weeks, the Royals go to a 6-man rotation just to kind of spread that out. And like you said, with Marsh, not that he's been bad as of late, but he's gotten rocked around a little bit. So it gives him a chance to just recollect himself, take some of the pressure off him. Even though he might be going down to pitch against lesser competition, he can refocus in on his craft and be a legitimate threat for us down the stretch, whether that's coming back up as a middle relief guy in the playoff run that can just throw gas, or a guy that has to come back in and spare, Reagan's a starter too, or Seth Lugo or something. So I love the move. On Baseball Savant, Lorenzo doesn't rank that high. He's an average pitcher, which is why, he went unsigned for quite a while. But there's not, as I look across it, there's not a lot of stuff that he does that hurts you, I guess.
Right.
He's a relative. I mean, to me, he's not that much different from Michael Walker right now. I think I'd still take Walker most days over Lorenzen, but I think they're both going to bring something pretty similar. A guy that should be able to go out there, pitch 5-6 innings if you need him to, 3 runs or less, be stable. He's not going to just explode on you and blow the game up. He's still touching about 95, 96 occasionally on his fastball. And if he's not pitching every 5 days, maybe that, upticks just a tiny bit, but love that move. It kind of does 2 things. Obviously we know bullpen is the need. So maybe Marsh was part of that addition at the deadline. Chris Bubich, part of that addition at the deadline as well. But Michael Lorenzen gives him a guy that can do both things. Let's go to the next one. Another one not on my radar whatsoever. Paul DeYoung has to walk 30 feet during the day as the news announced that he was traded from the White Sox to the Royals as they were in the middle of that series. He comes over primarily a shortstop. Obviously, he's not going to see a lot of time at shortstop here with the best shortstop in the game in front of him, but a guy that can play most of the infield, can DH for you. Main thing here is he's a power bat. Offensively, you take the power numbers away, not a lot there that excites you. One of my buddies, big Cardinals fan, just every day he just laughs at me. I can't believe you guys got DeYoung. That guy's terrible. He's the worst Cardinal of all time. So he hits for power. He immediately comes in as a top 3 power hitter on the Royals. You're not asking him to come in and play 162 games of star baseball. You're asking him to come in, drive the ball, score runs. My biggest worry with him is he strikes out a ton. He is one of the league's best strikeout guys, or worst strikeout guys, however you want to word it there. So that scares me because that's not really part of the Royals mantra and guys they go after. But the power numbers are for sure there. We've already seen it. He's got 1 home run in his first 3 games played. What do you like about this? Or, how do you feel about the addition of Paul DeYoung?
I think it's a good move. Wasn't on my radar either, but again, they won on the margins. Like, they gave up a lottery ticket for DeYoung, who's going to play 2 to 3 times a week. He actually gives you a threat off the bench. Okay, so we know Matty Q loves matchups and loves late inning pinch hitting and stuff. Like, who do you feel better? There's no one on base and you're down 1. Like, you want Garrett Hampson up to the plate, or do you want Paul? Like, Hampson may hit a single, but that's not going to do you really any good with 2 outs. DeYoung may strike out, but he also may hit a bomb. Like,
It gives you the threat.
Yeah, like, again, it's another win on the margins. This is actual guy that can hit a home run already. Like, I like the movie. I would have preferred like a Mark Canha or someone else that was on that cheaper end that didn't go for much. But again, you gave up some single A athlete who is
more than likely is not going to have
the lottery ticket for 2 months of DeYoung to play a couple times a week. Like, I think it was a great move. I think also going from the mental, it does for his mental mindset, just going from the White Sox to the Royals is huge too. Like, he's always been a strikeout hitter. That's not a strikeout guy. That's not going to go away. But like, just that refresh just may rejuvenate his overall numbers by being on a good team.
I wouldn't be surprised though if his strikeout numbers do slow down because of what you're saying there. I mean, you're playing for the White Sox. You literally have nothing to play for day in and day out. So why not try and mash every single at bat, strikeout or bust? home run or bust. So I think that could actually come into favor here, where that might slow down some. And again, he's not going to be getting as many at bats consistently, I don't think. Didn't really quite solve the outfield production as we had hoped, but obviously Hunter Renfroe's been on a tear. Really, Hunter Renfroe since I think late May, early June has been probably one of the top 15 right field production in baseball. You know, his
Just
power numbers
outfielders in
aren't quite
general.
there, but he's been consistent, striking out way less, getting on base a ton more, driving the ball. MJ Melendez, you know, back from injury here soon to hopefully getting back into his pre-injury where he was starting to heat up. So maybe they just felt like, hey, we don't really see that outfield guy that we can bring in without giving up more. Like you, I was shocked that Mark Canha was not one of those guys because he also didn't really go for much. We did see the Royals were in on some outfielders, Randy Rosarina being one of them. Jazz Chisholm, supposedly. I don't think there was anything they could give up, despite the fact that the Yankees, I think, gave up nothing for Jazz Chisholm.
Didn't give much.
Brian De La Cruz, also another one linked to them. Didn't see anything actually talked about with him nationally, but didn't get the outfield bat. They don't really have the outfield presence in the minor leagues right now, unless Velasquez starts smashing the ball again, and then he can kind of do what Paul DeJong is, or Drew Waters figures out how to be productive too.
Tyler Gentry was just named the Royals minor league player of the month for July. So he's starting to heat up a little bit. Again, that's a guy that's never played a major league game, but he is on the 40-man roster. So another injury or something, it may be that he may get his first chance.
Yeah, and he could be a guy that with Paul DeJong here, not saying the Royals are going to do this, but maybe they go, let's just see what he is capable of, and we can send Garrett Hampson down for a week and bring Gentry up here for a couple of bats, see if it floats, and if not, okay, fine, Hampson, you're back up, because Hampson at least is versatile enough to play every position on the field.
I don't know if a vet, if Hampson even has options, but it would be.
That's true. He might not.
It would have to be MJ or an injury to MJ or Isbell for Waters to get a chance. True. The lefty bat part of it.
Yeah. But yeah, Paul DeJong could be interesting. I think that power is a big addition. Gives you some little bit more strength in the lineup where you're not just relying on Salvi and Bobby for home run. And of course, Vinny is heating up as well the last 2 weeks. I think he's got like 7 home runs in his last 15 games or something like that. I think he's at 15 on the year now. So he's a week and a half ago, he was at 8 or 9, while Bobby and Salvi were at 17, 18, and now he's knocking on the door. His bat looks real nice right now. So the power production is picking up to maybe where you don't feel as stressed about needing that from the outfield. Okay, let's go to the last addition they made, and this probably, I'm going to guess, is your favorite. This is a guy that he was not on my radar until you mentioned him to me, and then we started diving into the numbers last week, and boy, Lucas Erceg might be potentially one of the best steals of the deadline. You've got him under club control till 2029. Little bit older for a relief pitcher. He's 28, 29. But you've got him under club control, and he's really starting to enter the prime of his career as a reliever. What can you tell us about Lucas Erceg?
Throws gas. I mean, that first and foremost. Throws 99 miles per hour. Is a competitor. That was the one thing about the guys the Royals acquired is I mean, it's kind of a generic thing to say, but like Dallas Braden, the play-by-play guy for the Oakland A's, came on and just raved about how much of a competitor this guy is. I mean, he was a second-round draft pick as a third baseman. So, like, dude can play some ball. Decided to switch it up. You know, he wasn't quite getting the results he wanted as a hitter and decided to just be a pitcher and throw 99, and here he is in the majors. So, like, if that doesn't tell you what this guy is, I mean, he's another one like Lorenzen. They got another dog, another athlete, another guy that can hit a little bit. I don't think we'll ever see that with him being a reliever, but like just that's the kind they had of a type that they were going after. And so he fixes a lot of things in that bullpen. I mean, you saw yesterday. I know in the Saturday game, it's one of the more frustrating losses the Royals had, but the 2, 3, 4 guys were due up in the 8th inning for the Tigers. Really the only threats that I have in that Detroit Tiger lineup. Erceg came out and went 1, 2, 3, bing, bang, boom, on to the next. Like, he is going to be like, he can't just be the straight closer because of that rest of that bullpen is so thin that he's going to have to be the guy that pitches when the most feared hitters are coming up. So sometimes that will be the ninth, but also sometimes that will be the eighth. We saw him used in the sixth the night before because it was a 1-run game and the best hitters were coming up. So like he is going to be a little bit of a matchup, but just know that he has the best stuff in that rotation or in that bullpen. It's just the rest of it is still so hit or miss. You can't just say he's the closer because you may need him other places.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we traded for Hunter Harvey, and the thought was best guy in the bullpen. Now you get Lucas Ursig. I think he's the best guy in the bullpen. And Harvey has struggled.
The stuff has been fine from Harvey too. He just cannot command his splitter at all.
He's missing the zone a lot.
His splitter just goes like if he is able to hone in on that, maybe you can throw Ursig just straight in the ninth. But Harvey's gonna I hope we don't have a Brandon Maurer situation.
Oh my gosh,
that's where I'm at right now because Harvey's on the team next year. Yeah. I know it's only like four outings, and I mean that's such a small sample size, but like that's where I'm at.
And I think for Harvey though, he immediately came into high leverage situations in a depleted bullpen. So I think there was honestly a lot of pressure the first couple of games because fans are going, we got to see you perform now. Maybe there's a little bit of nervousness. Has a little back flare up. John Schreiber goes on the injury list, a little bit more added pressure there. But hopefully when Schreiber gets back, because he was the guy that was supposed to come in and be either your fireman this year, or the guy that could take over that closer role, and it just hasn't happened. Because again, the rest of this bullpen, Zerpa's still probably been the next most consistent. We saw Sam Long get a save last week, despite giving up the grand slam the couple days before.
Long has been fine, man. He's got like a 2.5 ERA.
Yeah. MacArthur's the one I think that's got people the most frustrated because you can almost count the last 6 outings on your hand going bad outing, bad outing, bad outing, bad outing.
It's been abysmal.
And again, I don't really feel too bad about last night's because he was the third guy to come into that high leverage situation. Not that all 3 of the guys before him really blew it that poorly, but who else are you going to throw out there in the bottom of the 10th?
I'm at the point now that I think Will Smith needs to get another shot at high leverage. Like he doesn't need to be the go-to guy. Like that's still Ursig, that's still Long, that's still Bubic, Zerpa. Like, but he has been really a low leverage guy since April. Has crushed that role, by the way, since April. Since like May, I don't know what the exact ERA is, but
it's sub 2.
Yeah, it's been very good. Again, all low leverage. I get it, but like he's aced that role. Maybe you did come into the season thinking him to be the closer. Maybe up when we use him just to see what's the worst thing he's going to do. Blow another game like MacArthur and Harvey. Like that's kind of where I'm at.
The fact that we haven't had to talk about him for 8 weeks is a good thing. He's been quietly one of the most consistent guys in the bullpen, just doing his thing. But back to Lucas Ursig for a second. On Baseball Savant, he clearly ranks as probably top 10 relief pitcher. From stuff to velocity to swing and miss, everything. I mean, he is top 20 in almost every
his Baseball Savant
pitching category. Yeah, it's got a lot of red, which is a good thing. Most of the time, red is bad, but in this case, red is good. High velocity. I mean, he's 98.5% percentile for average fastball velocity. Swing and miss. Chase rate, whiff rate, K rate, all top 3rd in baseball. Pretty decent with his walk rate. Doesn't get a lot of hard hit barrel hits. He's a guy that has the capability of being your best swing and miss type guy for these high leverage situations.
And as volatile as relievers are, like I don't know if he's going to be this the whole 5 years, especially with his age. Like I know they've been throwing out the term, like young arm, or he doesn't have the same innings on it because he didn't come up as
late bloomer.
Yeah, as a reliever. But like so I'm not necessarily banking on it for all 5 years that they have him, but like for the next 3, I think you have a guy in that bullpen, and we'll see what happens the rest of his tenure in KC. But like, man, that they didn't even give up much. They gave up Will Klein, who didn't really look like he was ever going to command anything enough.
Could be the same guy, just less experienced.
Similar control. I think you get 1 extra year of control with Klein, so like nothing there. The Barnett kid, I was telling you, like we were looking at the MLB pipeline, and they had him at 4th, and I was like, I don't think this kid's that good at all. Come to find out, every other prospect one has him like 12th in the Royal system. So like that
And he
was
probably ranks lower in other teams' farm systems
right,
too.
right. So I don't think you give up much with Mason, even though some of the headlines were like Royals gave up the 4th prospect. Now he was not that good. And then you gave up a lottery ticket on that outfielder. I know a lot of people were kind of intrigued by Dickey. Is that what his name was,
Yeah,
right?
Jared Dickey.
Yeah,
Yep.
but again, he wasn't anything that I was holding my breath for.
Yeah.
So you didn't even give up much for him, in my opinion.
Again, probably Tanner Scott obviously was the most coveted bullpen piece, and Padres gave up quite a bit to get him. Jason Adam went for a lot. Ursig didn't really take a lot. Lucas Sims, another guy we talked about, went for a bigger package in this. So credit to the Royals and JJ Picola for going and getting a guy that fits the exact mold of what they need without having to give up a ton. And I think that was the summary of the deadline. You went out and got 3 guys that can make an immediate impact without having to give up a ton of your future. And John Sherman talked about a couple weeks ago that he was very hesitant to give up a lot of future pieces for win now assets. He said, I'd rather acquire extra payroll or do other things necessary to get talent now than to sacrifice the future, because he knows the farm system's not that good.
Right.
And if we want to make future moves, we need some guys down there.